Viewers, my name is Margaret Ikia Asante, and I'll be taking you through understanding the concept of practice-based or art-based research and practice-led research. Based on that, these are the areas we are going to explore. Definition of terms, which is the art-based research. Practice-related research. Difference between practice-based research and practice-led research. Similarities of practice-based research and practice-led research. Then we move on to the processes. Creative works are essential to a full understanding of knowledge. It is important at a point to consider the kind of artifact in which the researcher wants to create. There are other methodologies used during research projects across numerous creative disciplines. So based on that, we are first going to look at what research is. Research is a careful, systematic study and investigating in some field of knowledge. Based on our concept we are looking at, we will dive into what practice is. Practice is a professional and creative way of producing a work purposely to acquire knowledge. So, since we have knowledge on research and practice, let's move on to what qualitative research is. Qualitative research is a kind of research that produces findings by strategic processes or strategic procedures. So now we have knowledge on what qualitative research is, what research is, and what practice is. Researchers has used art for various stages of research. Based on that, art-based research is an approach to research, reviews the purpose and views of research that involves art, and identifies stages and ways that art can be utilized by addressing questions that are debated in the field. Based on that, art-based research can be used to collect data, interpret it or analyze it through art. The characteristics of art-based research is that they engage with the aesthetic understanding of the art. Based on that, let's move on to the practice-related research. Practice-related research was developed through a research into creative practice, especially in creative writings. Practice-related research is an accepted methodology in which some of the creative arts disciplinary use. In other books or other scholars refer practice-related research as action research. So, under the practice-related research, we are going to look at practice as research, practice and research, practice-based research, and practice-led research. We'll move on to the practice as research. With the practice as research, the researcher consists entirely the art practice with no critical output deemed necessary. And with practice and research, the creative artifact and critical output are spread separately whilst knowledge acquired from the creative practice informs the critical exploration. And with the practice-led research, it involves the identification of research questions and problems, but the research method, content and output, then involving a significant focus on the creative practice. The outputs of such research are intended to develop the individual practice and the practice of the field, and to build theories related to the practice in order to gain new knowledge or insight. And let's move on to practice-based research. With the practice-based research, it is applied when the creative act is an original investigation undertaken in order to gain new knowledge and experiment seeking partly by means of practice and the outcome of that practice. With the practice-based research, the creative act is an experiment, whether or not the work itself demands experimental. It is designed to answer a directed research question about art and the practice of it, which could not otherwise be explored by the other methods. From this methodology, the esearch is accompanied by creative work and splitted and sits within the content of that field. And as explained earlier on, practice-led research, it focuses on the nature of creative practice, leading to new knowledge and operationally significant for that knowledge in order to advance knowledge about or within a practice. With the practice-based research, creative art gains new knowledge on an artwork, and it is accompanied by the written document. And with the practice-led, leads to new knowledge. With the practice-based, both the artwork and the documentation is needed, and with the practice-led, the documentation is needed than the artwork. Based on that, let's move on to the differences between practice-based and practice-led research. With the practice-based research, the creative work acts as a form of research, whereas with the practice-led research is about practice leading to the insight, which leads to the documentation of whatever artifact you are producing. With the practice-based research, gaining new knowledge through a novel investigation of practice and its outcome. So with the practice-based research, you gain new knowledge based on the artifact you are producing or based on the practice work you are producing, and the documentation, that's the outcome, is also needed. Whilst with the practice-led, gaining new knowledge about the nature of the practice and its significance to the future practice. So with the practice-led, you gain knowledge on the artwork, but for the future, the documentation part is needed more. With the practice-led research, produce a written account of the significance of the work with direct reference to the artist's outcome, whilst with the practice-led research, produce a written documentation without the need of accompanying the artwork. For example, if an artist produces a painting and he or she is able to write or document about the painting, is termed as practice-based research. Based on that, both the paintings and the documentation is presented. Whilst with the practice-led research, based on the practice leading to the research insight. That is maybe the processes he or she went through with in producing the artwork and made a documentation. But when the artist is producing, or when the artist is presenting the final work, the artwork piece is not part of the written document, but it leads or guides the artist to write or document on whatever he or she wants to write about. So now let's move on to the similarities of art, of practice-based research and practice-led research. Both can be used as research method in the art field. Both follow a specific methodology whilst conducting the creative art research. Since they are both research method which helps or which assist in conducting a creative research, let's move on to the processes of practice-based research and practice-led research. With the practice-based research, 1. Establish the research problem, the rhetorical problem of the entire project. So one, as an artist, he or she must find a problem to that research he or she wants to conduct, meaning problem which does not have a direct answer. And secondly, engage the processes of planning. The artist or the researcher must generate ideas and set goals in making the research. Thirdly, identify the area of interest, identify key gaps in knowledge, and formulate a research questions designed to fill those gaps. So the researcher must first identify his or her area of interest. Based on that, look for gap related to the topic he or she wants to research on, then formulate the research design. So let's move on to the next step. The next step is conduct background research. Long-term memory in knowledge of relevant domain. He or she must look for other literature reviews, be whether documented, which enable the practice-based researcher to know what she does not know in order to identify the gap and to engage fully in the planning process, generating and exploring ideas, and set goals for the creative practice. So the researcher must read other books, journals, articles to help in literature review. With the literature review, it helps the researcher gains more understanding on various research being conducted by other researchers. With the third procedure, the researcher conducts empirical research or continuum contextual research. With the empirical, it is a way of gaining knowledge by means of direct or indirect observation or experience in order to explore the main research question. With the empirical research, the researcher creates a project or designs a creative project that appeals to him or her to foster the insight into the process of composition, and that would permit a unique practice-based perspective on the question at hand. which helps the researcher explore more on the main research questions, and also by engaging in all aspects of the creative cognitive process. So let's move on to the last but not the least process. Forms arguments leading to the edge cases. Note at every point of the practice-based research processes, it should be frequently examined. Sense is given to exploration and significant moments of discovery, which are sometimes unpredictable at the start of the project. So the researcher can revisit the research questions and refine the research questions. The researcher can also research activities beginning to draw to conclusions. So after the researcher has practiced all the processes in achieving a good research, by so doing, the researcher or the practitioner draw conclusions and write the exegesis. And the exegesis is a written portion of the visual art inquiry and developed connected with the body of art. So after the artwork is being produced, all the processes is being undertaken, the researcher writes a portion of the art piece being made. So let's move on with the processes of practice-led research. You first generate your idea, which is persuaded through investigation or research. Through the idea generation, you then select through creative practices, which the practitioner formulates or theorize the idea, processes, and technique in which has developed through the creation of the artwork. So based on that, we investigate from the idea. For example, if an artist wants to produce an artwork, he or she must first generate the idea, and through that idea should be a creative practice. Investigate the type of materials to use, the processes he or she is going to go through. Revisit whether the research questions being set is going to help with the outcome or the output of that artifact. And through that, he or she develops choosing idea based on the processes, the materials, the time involved and everything. He or she has to develop a chosen idea, choose a particular idea or a particular processes he or she wants to take. And after that, based on the processes and everything in which the artist went through in producing the artwork, he or she documents the output. So with the practice-led research, as said earlier on, the output is the final or is the important aspect of a researcher generating or investigating an idea. In conclusion, for the last 2 decades, practice research or practice-related research has helped improve upon our research under the creative arts disciplinary. Based on that, practice-led research and practice-based research or art-based research should be encouraged in our disciplinary and in our university environment. Thank you.